Hey there. As I'm completing Elden Ring Nightreign, I feel compelled to talk about something that's at the forefront of my mind. The Executor's remembrance questline. Or rather, what the narrative is about at its core, what the story is trying to convey. Heavy spoilers for this quest, so if you've not completed it yet, I highly recommend you save this video to watch later and come back once it's complete. So, with that out of the way, let's dive in. So, as far as we know about Executor, his bio reads, "This condemned soul, with a body fused with pieces of armor, went missing after a prison stint in the lands between, brandishes a cursed blade and savors every battle, boasts high dexterity and arcane, and is unrivaled in one-on-one fights while armed with his cursed sword." So he wields a cursed sword, named Suncatcher according to the name of his character skill, and he can also manifest as an entire crucible beast. He really is just crucible coded through and through. But critically, he's an artist who is creating a painting called the Erdtree. As with the other characters, you complete a series of objectives and defeat Night Lords, which unlock pages of his journal. The final portion of the quest sees Executor battle a mirror image of himself and witness a vision. Together, these relay the following story. An artist washes up on the shore of the lands between from the land of reeds and is inspired by the majesty of the Erdtree. She was painting a picture of the Erdtree when a crucible knight, whom she refers to as the guest, arrives, seemingly with orders to kill her. This crucible knight takes pity on the artist, first telling her that he will wait to kill her until the painting is done, but eventually cannot make himself do so, possibly out of love and bonding over the beauty of the Erdtree. Since the crucible knight did not complete his task, a second crucible knight, who I'll call the Executioner, is sent to finish the job. The Executioner attacks the artist and the guest tries to defend her, but it is too late. In his grief and shame for not protecting the artist, he commits seppuku with a sword from the land of reeds. So if we are meant to understand this story as a literal retelling of events, what can we learn? A fairly obvious observation we can make is that the Executor plays the role of the guest, given the katana or odachi that the Crucible Knight wields, and the seppuku wound that his remembrance armor bears. About the armor that is fused to him, I wonder if that is true of all Crucible Knights, and that's why we don't see any that are unmasked. When they don the red gold armor, maybe it becomes a part of their being, blending them together, if you will. This also shows that Crucible Knights are real people. Previously, I had kind of assumed that they were like Crucible entities or something. We've had hints of their personalities, like Crucible Knight Devonia searching the Land of Shadow for the Crucible's origin, but we've never seen one speak or reveal their face. But this definitively shows that they are humans who have their own will and desires. The artist in the story is likely not the painter from the base game, but rather a painter, since she came from the Land of Reeds and became enamored by the Erdtree. However, I'm not convinced that there even was a singular painter. It seems likely that there were many different painters, maybe reincarnations or something. Executor's cursed blade, Suncatcher, was likely formed from the original katana that the guest wielded and became cursed after seppuku was performed. 'Cause you know, kegare and all that. If you are unaware of the Japanese concept of kegare, I gladly direct you to Aesir Aesthetics video about the topic. And the name Suncatcher is also more evidence that the crucible is linked to the sun, which I talked about in my most recent YouTube video. So given all that, it does provide some very interesting tidbits of lore, but there are many weird little inconsistencies that appear if we take the story at face value. For example, the Erdtree in the memories is golden and spectral. The Crucible Knights in the story are still receiving orders from someone, and since they follow Godfrey, this event could be understood to be happening during Godfrey's reign. So this has weird implications for those of us who theorize that the Erdtree was fully corporeal during the Age of Godfrey, or the Age of Abundance. Another detail is that if Executor is supposed to be the guest, then why does he paint like the artist? And in the journal entries, the perspective seems to shift fluidly between these three characters even within the same stanza. So did all three of these characters somehow combine to form the Executor that we play as? I am not so sure that we're supposed to read this story as a historical account. In fact, I definitely don't think so. I think that this is a story about one man struggling to forgive himself for the choices that he made. First, I want to address the journals. They are all written with the same poetic prose, which indicates a single author, and this is Executor's journal after all, and many of the other characters treat their journals as anyone would, a diary of sorts. This must be Executor retelling the entirety of this story, as opposed to Iron Eye's journal, which seems to include perspectives from other people. But here is what I think the true story is behind the remembrance questline. Executor is experiencing an internal conflict between his artistic nature and his duty to be a cold-blooded warrior. He was an artist and he did come from the land of reeds. He fell in love with the Erdtree and he chose to devote himself to its cause by joining the ranks of the Crucible Knights. But his service requires that he be a killer, a faceless soldier, and his eye for the tranquil beauty of the world is in conflict with that. His artistic nature would need to be put down. This is what is shown when we fight our double in the final remembrance quest. We are the side of the Executor who would come kill the artist to assume the mantle of the Crucible Knight, and our double is the side that will defend the artist. And he says,
I will curtail the threat that awaits us. And let any who dare disturb such peace face my blade.
An Executor is someone who must render judgment on a will. The Executor must render a judgment on whether or not to kill the artist within himself. As represented by the Executioner in the story, he eventually decides to kill the artist and commits to being a Crucible Knight, a decision he'll later regret. After all, it was his artistic inspiration that led him into the service of the Erdtree in the first place. So after some period of time, the regret and anguish he feels becomes too much to bear, and he commits seppuku, cursing his weapon with his blood. Once he is reincarnated through the Erdtree, he is imprisoned for abandoning his Crucible Knight duty. And so, after the shattering and the rise of the Night Lord, he escapes from confinement and seeks absolution by avenging the Erdtree as well as atoning for the betrayal of his other self. So that's my take on Executor's Remembrance Quest. It's a tragically beautiful metaphor. It's much like the themes present in the stories of Marika and Mikola, who shed aspects of themselves to attain godhood, and even that of Radagon, who gave up his family to become Elden Lord. But this story is a bit more hopeful. Instead of letting his sins turn him into a monster, Executor is motivated to seek absolution. He doesn't carry on as a shell of his former self, but he seeks to reclaim the part of himself that was lost. It's a strangely optimistic story to be found in a From Software game, and one that many people, including myself, can relate to very strongly. Since we have such a top-down, grandiose narrative in the base game Elden Ring, I really enjoy these smaller, more personal narratives that are shared in Nightreign. So thank you for watching. Follow me on Blue Sky and leave a like, maybe even subscribe if you enjoyed this, and until next time, keep fighting the night, for the dawn is always just around the corner.